The sound of the door slamming behind me still echoes in my mind. It's not the kind of noise you can ignore, not when it's the sound of your entire future shattering. Everything I thought I had worked for, the years of hard work, the late nights, the sacrifices, the dream of a peaceful retirement, all of it came crashing down in one horrifying moment. You might be wondering, how does cheating nearly cost you a $700,000 retirement? Let me tell you, it was a mistake I'll never forget. And it wasn't just about the affair. It was about everything that came after, the secrets, the lies, and the betrayal that threatened to destroy everything. It started like any other affair, secretive, thrilling, exciting. I thought I had everything under control. I didn't think I was one of those women who would risk everything for a fleeting moment of passion. I was wrong. In the beginning, I told myself it was harmless, just a little fun, something to make me feel alive again. After all, my husband and I had been married for decades. Our routine had become predictable. There was no spark left, no excitement. But when I met him, James, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. The attraction was instant, undeniable. He wasn't like my husband. He didn't know my flaws. My routine, my past. He was new, thrilling, mysterious. I convinced myself I wasn't doing anything wrong. I deserved a little excitement, didn't I? But I wasn't prepared for the consequences. I wasn't prepared for what would happen when the affair didn't stay a secret. When the lies I had carefully constructed began to unravel, I realized just how much I had risked. It wasn't just my marriage, it was my entire future. James and I had met under the guise of business. He worked in a field that overlapped with mine, and the meetings started as harmless networking. But soon those meetings turned into late-night calls, secret texts, and stolen moments. The rush of it was intoxicating. I felt desired again, important, wanted. My husband was busy, always busy, and I was left feeling empty, forgotten. James made me feel alive again, and that feeling, that high, was something I couldn't walk away from. But then things started getting messy. The late nights became more frequent. I was lying about where I was, who I was with, and why I was late. It was all a game to me, a game I thought I could control. But as my secret life grew bigger, the lies became harder to manage. I had to cover my tracks. And that's when I made the biggest mistake of my life. One night I was at dinner with James. My phone buzzed. It was a message from my husband. "I need to talk to you when you get home." Those words, those simple, innocent words, sent a chill down my spine. My heart raced as I saw James' name on the screen. He reached across the table, his hand brushing against mine, grounding me in the moment. I smiled, trying to calm myself. But deep down, I knew something was about to change. It happened the next day when my husband discovered the truth. I never saw it coming. Not in a million years. It was a Monday morning, and my husband was standing in the doorway of our home office, holding my phone in his hands. My heart dropped. "Who is he, Sophie?" he asked. "Who is James?" I froze. The words didn't make sense. How did he know? How long had he known? In an instant, I knew my life as I knew it was over. My husband had discovered everything, the messages, the calls, the lies, the entire affair. But it wasn't just about the affair, it was about the trust I had destroyed. The years of hard work, the savings for our future. Everything I thought we had built suddenly seemed so fragile. As he stood there, holding my phone like a weapon, I realized that my infidelity hadn't just ruined our marriage. It had jeopardized everything I had worked so hard for. It was no longer just about me and my husband. It was about our entire future. And in that moment, I realized how close I was to losing it all. My retirement savings, the $700,000 that we had spent years building, was at risk. My betrayal wasn't just a personal failure, it was financial. The threat of losing it all was very real. "What do you think this is going to cost us, Sophie?" he asked, his voice cold, calculated. The betrayal in his eyes was sharper than any knife. "Do you realize how much you've risked? How much you could lose?" I couldn't respond. I couldn't look at him. I had no excuses, no defenses. What had I done? That's when he dropped the bombshell that made my blood run cold. "I'm taking control of the finances," he said. "Until we figure this out, I'm freezing our accounts." My stomach lurched. The reality of what I had done hit me like a tidal wave. My husband had every right to take action. If he chose to pull the plug on our retirement savings, I could lose everything. I had never thought about the consequences of my actions, at least not in this way. I was so consumed by my own desires, my own needs, that I didn't realize what was at stake. But now, as I watched him walk out of the room, I knew I was facing the hardest challenge of my life. The affair wasn't just an emotional mess. It was a financial nightmare. In the days that followed, my husband and I barely spoke. The silence between us was deafening. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and suffocating. Every word we exchanged seemed loaded with resentment, distrust. Every time he looked at me, I saw the anger and betrayal in his eyes. But as the days passed, I started to realize that I wasn't just losing my marriage. I was losing everything. The money I had worked so hard to save, the security I had always counted on, was slipping through my fingers. If my husband chose to take legal action, if he decided to split our assets, I would be left with nothing. And then came the turning point, the moment I had to decide. Could I save everything I had built, or was I going to lose it all? My husband gave me an ultimatum. "Sophie, I can't continue like this. You've broken my trust in the worst way possible. I'm willing to forgive you, but I need to know you'll fix this. I'm giving you a chance to prove that you can save what's left of our future. But if you don't, if you continue to lie, this will be the end." I couldn't breathe. The weight of his words settled over me like a crushing burden. I had a choice to make. I could fix this. I could rebuild our marriage, rebuild the trust I had destroyed. Or I could let it all slip away. In the end, I knew what I had to do. I had to face the consequences. I had to confront the truth, not just about my affair, but about myself, my marriage, and my future. I had been reckless, selfish, and naive, but I was determined to make things right. I knew I couldn't undo the past, but I could try to salvage what was left. And I wasn't about to let my retirement, my entire future, be the price I paid for my mistakes. It wasn't easy. Trust wasn't something you could rebuild overnight, but step by step. We worked through the pain, the anger, and the hurt. Slowly we began to rebuild our marriage, our finances, our future. But the damage was done. The betrayal had shaken us to our core. And while I was able to save our retirement, the scars of my infidelity would never completely heal. The cost of my mistake was far greater than I could have ever imagined. But in the end, I learned the hardest lesson of my life, that sometimes the things you take for granted, the things you think you can control, are the things that can slip away the fastest. And that $700,000, it was just the beginning. The price I almost paid for my selfishness, my choices, and my lack of foresight. I had come so close to losing it all. And I'm lucky that I didn't. The next few weeks felt like a blur. It was as though time had slowed down, every minute dragging on with the weight of my decisions pressing down on me. Every morning I woke up, I was reminded of the mess I had created, and every night as I lay next to my husband, I couldn't escape the fact that I had betrayed him in the most intimate way possible. But it wasn't just the guilt that haunted me. It was the realization that I had almost destroyed everything we had worked for. The retirement we had been saving for, the years of planning, the dreams of traveling and enjoying our golden years together, gone. Just like that. All because of one reckless decision. As the days passed, the tension between us became unbearable. My husband wasn't cruel, but he was distant. I could feel the walls building up between us, each one thicker than the last. I knew I had broken his trust beyond repair. And no amount of apology or promises could fix that. I tried to reach out to him, tried to show him I was truly sorry, but he was cold, detached. I didn't blame him. How could I expect him to just forgive me and move on? I had hurt him in a way that I couldn't take back. The affair wasn't just about passion or excitement. It was about the way I had neglected him, the way I had taken him for granted, and now I had to face the consequences of that neglect. But the real kicker came when I learned that my husband wasn't the only one who had been affected by my actions. My infidelity had caught the attention of our financial advisor. I never thought about the broader impact of my affair. I never imagined that something so personal could spiral into a financial catastrophe. One afternoon we sat down with our advisor, trying to figure out how to navigate this mess. He looked at me, and I could see the judgment in his eyes. He didn't say it outright, but I could tell he was questioning my integrity. How could I have jeopardized our financial future for a brief moment of passion? And then came the bombshell I wasn't prepared for. My husband had considered withdrawing our entire retirement fund. He had thought about taking our money out, freezing everything, just to make sure I didn't have access to it. He didn't trust me anymore. He didn't trust us anymore. That moment shook me to my core. My heart pounded in my chest, and I could feel my world crumbling once again. The thought of losing everything, the retirement savings I had worked so hard for, the life we had planned for years, it was unbearable. I couldn't let that happen. But it wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about proving to my husband that I could change, that I could fix what I had broken. It wasn't until I realized the true gravity of what I had done that I fully understood how close I had come to losing everything. I wasn't just fighting for our marriage anymore. I was fighting for my future. The realization hit me like a freight train. If my husband decided to take legal action, if he chose to separate our finances, it could be a disaster. The retirement savings, the investments, everything we had been working towards, it could all slip through my fingers. But as the days went on, I slowly started to understand something crucial. My husband wasn't the enemy. He was hurt, angry, betrayed, but deep down he still loved me. He wasn't going to give up on me that easily. The real challenge was proving to him that I could earn back his trust. And that would take more than just apologizing. It would take time, patience, and most importantly, action. There were moments when I doubted myself. Could I really fix this? Could I really save my marriage and our future? Would my husband ever see me as the woman he once trusted? But then something shifted. I couldn't just sit back and let everything fall apart. I couldn't let my selfishness cost me my future. I started working harder than I ever had before. I threw myself into rebuilding my relationship with my husband. I worked to rebuild the trust we had lost, but I also had to prove to myself that I was capable of making the right choices, that I could be the woman I wanted to be, not just for him, but for me. And then came the turning point. The moment I knew I had a chance to salvage everything. My husband and I sat down together, away from the financial advisor, away from the pressures of the outside world. For the first time in weeks, there was no anger in his voice. There was no coldness in his eyes. We talked, really talked. For the first time since everything came out, and as we spoke, something shifted between us. I could see it in his eyes. He was still hurt, but he was willing to try again. It wasn't going to be easy. Rebuilding trust wasn't something that happened overnight. But at that moment, I realized that the $700,000 wasn't just about money. It was about the life we had built together. Our history, our shared dreams, the years of work and sacrifice. I wasn't going to lose that. But even then, I knew the damage had been done. The scars of infidelity would remain. No matter how hard I worked to make things right, my husband's love for me wasn't the same. His trust in me was fractured, and I couldn't expect that to change overnight. But what I could do was prove myself. I could show him through my actions that I was committed to fixing the mess I had made. It would take time. It would take effort. But I was willing to do whatever it took. The next few months were the hardest of my life. There were still moments of doubt, moments when I wondered if I had truly lost him forever. But step by step, we rebuilt not just our marriage, but our financial future. Slowly, but surely we worked through the pain, the anger, and the betrayal. The $700,000 wasn't just a financial cushion. It was a symbol of everything we had worked for, everything we had hoped to achieve, and I wasn't going to let my mistake take that away. In the end, we didn't just survive. We thrived. We came out of this stronger, more resilient, and more aware of the choices we were making. I learned the hard way that nothing in life is guaranteed, not your marriage, not your savings, and certainly not the future you imagine. And while the scars of my infidelity will never completely disappear, I can honestly say that I've learned from them. I've learned that nothing is more precious than trust, and I've learned that sometimes you have to lose everything to realize just how much you truly have. So, when you think about infidelity and the consequences it can have, remember my story. The affair wasn't just about a moment of weakness. It wasn't just about passion or excitement. It was about the trust I destroyed and the future I almost lost. If you're at a crossroads, if you're tempted to make a choice you'll regret, just remember, sometimes the price you pay isn't just emotional, it's financial too, and you might not realize it until it's almost too late.